Wife is pregnant, baby might not be mine. Not quite sure why I'm doing this. I've been drinking quite heavily for most of today, so if I stop making sense, you all understand why. I'm 40-year-old male and my wife is 38. She was always adamant that we wouldn't have children. I wanted them but loved her more than the idea of becoming a father. We met when I was 20 and she was 18 and were married by the time I was 22. She came from a very privileged background and her parents did not approve of me. They are of the opinion that she married below her social station. A few months ago she visited her parents and her father bought her a new car. Her parents have serious money, and I trusted her, so it wasn't something that I questioned. Plus, she's always received gifts from her father over the years. Why would this one be any different? A couple of weeks ago she told me that she was pregnant, and I was ecstatic, happier than I've ever been. But it didn't last long. I got a call from a friend and he told me that he'd seen her with her brother-in-law, her sister's husband, while she was visiting her parents. She hadn't told me that she'd seen him. They've always had a weird dynamic that's made me uncomfortable, but I consoled myself with the view that she had chosen me. She could have been with him, but she had chosen me. My friend sent me some pictures and it changed things. The images showed a couple that were very close. The image showed them gazing and holding each other. The intimate gestures of ones familiar with each other. Her gazing at home with a look that I had hoped was reserved for myself. His hands in her hair as he kissed her. Turns out it's more than likely he bought her the car. I confronted her about it, asked her what happened, but she lied. Told me she hadn't seen him. Told me that I should know the score between them, that she has to be civil. Very fucking civil. I showed her the pictures and told her to leave. That was a week ago. Then I did the maths in my head and realized the dates line up. There is a very real chance he might be the baby's father. Today I asked her for a DNA test, but she exploded at that. The thought of subjecting her baby to a test. But without one, he'll never accept this child as mine. This whole ordeal has made me reconsider my marriage. Not only that, but how honest she's been throughout it. How many of the gifts that she's received over the years have actually been from her father? Has she just spread her legs for any man that's bought her something nice? Have I quite literally married a whore? I've sent her sister the pictures, not for any noble reason of thinking that she should know. I want to hurt my wife and brother-in-law, and that's the best way I know at the moment. On Monday, I think I'm going to talk to a lawyer and set the divorce proceedings in motion. Thank you for reading, and I'm sorry if this is a mess. My mental state isn't great and I've had a lot to drink. Edit. Thanks for the support. Those that don't believe me, that's your prerogative. This is the internet and I understand your skepticism. I need her permission for a DNA test and she's made it clear that she won't give it. The next step is I get a divorce and lose half my stuff. Infidelity doesn't matter as much to the UK courts. Dyslexia and a high blood alcohol level are responsible for any spelling and grammatical mistakes. Update 1. I've not spoken to my wife in close to 10 days. She sent me some messages and left voicemails, but I haven't responded to any of them. I made my position clear with her. When she agrees to a DNA test, I'll talk to her, not before. I spent Christmas with a close friend and he gave me some advice about what to do with my future. I used to row and box in my early 20s and I plan to start doing that again. I'm also giving up alcohol for the foreseeable future. It doesn't do my mental state any good. I have an appointment with a lawyer and a therapist next week. I plan to get myself sorted mentally, emotionally, and legally so that I don't get too fucked in the coming months. Whether or not I get divorced in the end, I need to know my options and the consequences. I've spoken to my sister-in-law on a few occasions and she's going down a similar route to me and filing for divorce in the new year. Her and my brother-in-law have a young daughter, so life's going to get quite complicated for them. If the baby turns out to be his, then they can have one really fucked up family. I'm jumping from wanting the baby to not. If it's mine, then I get to be a dad, but my life gets seriously complicated. If it's someone else's, then I can be done with all of them and have a fresh start, but the thought that she'd have another man's child is profoundly depressing. If it's not my child, then I think I'll move somewhere else. Maybe apply for a work visa in America, transfer to one of the European branches of the company, or spend a few years living as a nomad traveling around the world. Haven't thought that far ahead yet, but I doubt I'll stay in the UK. If it is mine, then things will be much more complicated. I haven't told her about my plans for the future because at its current standpoint, she's not in them. That might change, but at its current standpoint, that's unlikely. As updates go, this one is probably disappointing, but it is what it is. If she agrees to a DNA test, then I'll provide another update, but at this point, that seems quite unlikely. Update 2. It's been almost 6 months since I posted anything and quite a lot has changed for me in the last few months. I got a temporary transfer to one of the northern branches of my company. They say a change is as good as a rest, and in this instance it was. Working somewhere different was definitely what I needed, and it was nice to be somewhere where I wasn't reminded about my current situation. When I returned home, it really clicked how unhappy I have been in London. It's not a city that I enjoy living and working in, and I've made the decision to move. I did also have a short casual relationship with someone else, but it didn't really go anywhere. I thought some meaningless sex would help, and during the act it did, but afterwards I always felt guilty, so I stopped. My wife had the baby last Monday. She also agreed to a DNA test. I saw her on Wednesday, which was an experience. I haven't really spoken to her in the last 6 months, so the meeting was very awkward. Her parents have never really liked me, and the last few months have done nothing to improve their opinion of me. She kept on asking me if I could feel it while I held the baby. I'm not quite sure what it is, but I did feel something. I told her about my plans to move, and she was very much on board with that, insisting that it could be a fresh start for us. She maintained that she never had an affair. I don't know if I believe that, but I have no evidence. I'm not certain that I want her to come with me. I did get the results from the test a few days ago, and it is my baby. She's made her position clear. She wants us to be one family, one household. The thing is, I really don't know if that's what I want anymore. Truth be told, I have no clue what I want anymore. The main thing that I feel at the moment is confused and uncertain. Stay with her or leave her. I am in a lot of respects tied to her now through our son. It's something that I'm putting a lot of thought into before I decide. My therapist says that trust is everything in any relationship, and if you don't trust someone, then you can't have a real relationship with them. He also asked if I could trust her again or see myself being in a position where I could trust her again in the future. Both questions I don't know how to answer at the moment. I'm not looking for advice. I'm well aware of the echo chamber that is Reddit. I don't think I'll post another update, as I don't see any point. Now let's see what the community has to say. Opinion number 1 says, ultimately it comes down one choice. You can either give her a chance, earn your trust back, or leave her and co-parent. If you give her the opportunity to re-earn your trust, you'll have to decide how she does that. Phone, app access, no more family visits alone, strict, appropriate boundaries, etc. However, even then it might not be enough. Her infidelity might be too big a bridge to cross. Conversely, you can leave and co-parent. This is the choice I made. Whilst difficult initially, once we got into a solid routine, it's worked well. In this case, consistency and stability for your son is key. You have a difficult decision to make. Whatever you decide, I pray you and your son find the happiness you deserve. Godspeed and good luck. Opinion number 2 says, well, her cheating is no longer an issue. You went off and had yourself a revenge bang, not even knowing the full facts. Glad the child is yours. The only person I feel sorry for here is this kid. Having parents that put themselves in positions to be mistrusted, or on the opposite pole, a parent going away for 6 months banging other women. Maybe date your wife first. You got your own back. If you point that finger, in your case 3 points back. Give her a chance. Seems you have always been overwhelmed by her family wealth. Whatever you do, you're a dad now. Whether you like her or not, she got you by the short and curlies. Sorry, no respect if you cheat back. Cheating. Her photo may still have a plausible explanation. That's why I told you to see her after your second post. Get facts, then decide. You now have 20 years to work this out. Remember facts, verify facts, then act on facts. But do not go and do the same bloody thing. You just lost your position by doing that. Cheater accusing cheater. Revenge never solves problems. Opinion number 3 says, well, whether it's a relationship ending, I agree, is subjective. Plenty of people stay in relationships with confirmed cheaters, and those often do not work out, which is why OP probably is getting some negative reactions from folks at the notion that Opus is even considering it. Should a lying about kissing someone be relationship breaking? I agree, it depends. It certainly is important enough to Opus that he considered leaving her over it, and certainly important enough that a third-party friend made the effort to inform him about it. And lastly, it seemed important enough to her that she lied about it. And I think that last part is very telling, and why I mentioned trust. If you lie about that, what else are you lying about? That's the question that will always haunt him if he stays in this. Sounds like the makings of a toxic relationship to me, but that's just my opinion. Edit. Personally, I don't feel strongly one way or another whether he stays or goes. Like cheaters, those that stay with them must lie in the bed they make. I've learned the hard way that people in these situations will listen or not. The choice is up to them, no matter how hard you try to give them advice. How about you guys? What do you guys think about this whole situation, and what would your advice be for OP? Let's all discuss in the comments section below. Story 2. I snooped and found out my BF had cheated in a previous relationship. Made me so insecure and him being angry at me. Am I in the wrong? I, a 28-year-old female, snooped and found out my BF, let's call him Oliver, a 34-year-old male, had a hidden conversation with a friend he had cheated with in a previous relationship. I've brought up insecurities surrounding their history with him several times. The F is frustrated that I snooped and feels he had no choice but to hide their conversation. My boyfriend Oliver and I have been in a relationship for a little over 2 years and living together for almost 9 months. In a previous relationship, Oliver emotionally cheated on his girlfriend, let's call her Diane, with a female friend, Kylie, who he had a sexual history with before he and Daisy dated. His girlfriend knew he and Kylie had a sexual history, but I'm not sure if she was aware of the emotional infidelity. Oliver invited his GF on a bike trip and she declined, so he invited Kylie instead. Daisy expressed that she was not comfortable with this due to their history, but he went on the trip with Kylie anyway. When he returned, Daisy broke up with him. He had been waffling about whether or not to stay in the relationship with Daisy for some time due to incompatibilities. Early on in our relationship, I noticed that my BF would chat with Kylie online from time to time. I felt insecure because of their history and asked him more about it and admitted I didn't feel great about it. He offered to stop talking to her, but I didn't feel that was a tenable solution in my experience. Asking your partner to stop talking to someone because of insecurity, trust issues, or jealousy is at best a band-aid to the underlying problem. I expressed as much to him. On the same principle, when he offered to show me their chats, I thanked him but declined. I haven't seen them chatting online since then. But every once in a while, my discomfort with their friendship comes back and I talk to him about it. He always feels that I'm accusing him of something when I bring her up, and within the past few months has said that he's not willing to put up with my insecurity or being made to feel like he's doing something wrong by being in contact with her. I've tried since the beginning of this issue to be fair and not accuse him of doing anything wrong, as I know how exhausting that feels and don't want him to think I'm projecting. I never quite feel settled about it, though, so admittedly this has been a recurring issue. A couple of weeks ago, our cat sat down on Oliver's laptop keyboard while he was in the bathroom, so I picked her up. And while doing so, I glanced at his computer screen, where Signal, a chat app which we both used to communicate with each other, was up. Something odd caught my eye. I noticed that he had sent himself a text, probably some sort of confirmation code, from another account with his name, and immediately I felt anxious because I wasn't aware he had 2 accounts. I don't feel proud of this, but I snooped. I scrolled through his Signal chat logs and opened his archive folder to find a chat thread with Kylie. The only messages there were: 1, a picture of graduation caps, and 2, a question mark. I took this to mean he was asking her if she had graduated from college. The messages themselves were totally innocuous, but the fact that they were in a separate folder bothered me. I felt he was hiding his conversation with her from me intentionally. There was also a chat thread from my former roommate with no messages in it, and a thread with a woman, Tiffany, whose name I didn't recognize. I don't remember seeing anything concerning there, if anything at all, but still found it concerning that their conversation was archived. Later that night, I asked Oliver if there was a way to send oneself messages on Signal from the same account separate from the note to self feature, and he said not that he knew of. So I confessed what I saw on Signal and that I snooped, which I had never done before in our relationship, though I had resisted temptation to in the past. I told him that seeing that he had 2 accounts rang alarm bells in my head, and I gave into that and went through his messages, and that in any other scenario, I wouldn't have gone that far. I expressed that I was upset that he seemed to be hiding the fact that he and Kylie were talking from me, and that if it was true that there was nothing for me to worry about between them, then why hide it? I asked him who Tiffany was and why was their chat archived, and my former roommate too. He wasn't sure why my roommate was in that folder, as he had never texted with her. I accepted this, as I think I had texted her from his phone once when mine wasn't available. But Tiffany was a friend's wife. I don't remember what his explanation was there, but he assured me it was nothing bad and that she was a good Christian girl. He said he felt he had no choice at this point but to hide his conversation with Kylie, since any time I saw that they had been talking, I got upset. He was frustrated that this was still an issue and that I had snooped, rightfully accused me of crossing a boundary, and reminded me that he had said he won't put up with this. At first, I told him I felt he had crossed a boundary too, but he disagreed, and I realized he was right and came to agree with him. I violated his privacy. He told me about some personal issues Kylie had been talking to him about recently. He said that, last he knew, she was a mess. I felt terribly ashamed of myself, and at this point, I feel I'm pushing my boyfriend away. If I'm honest with myself, I do wish that my BF didn't keep in touch with Kylie because of their history, but I feel that asking him to do that would only breed resentment, or that he would just continue to message her anyway. I have been cheated on in several of my relationships, including one in which I had a gut feeling about a female friend of my S.O.'s. He assured me there was nothing going on, then got angry at me and tried to make me feel crazy. And then I found out that he had been flirting with her on Facebook. I don't want to punish my boyfriend for my ex's terrible behavior, and I know I have trust issues. But at the same time, I struggle to recognize reasonable boundaries and don't want to be taken advantage of as I work through my personal issues. Has anyone been in a similar situation on either side? How did you navigate this? What boundaries did you put up surrounding contact with people you have a history with? If you've been in my shoes, how did you feel? In my boyfriend's, what advice do you have on learning to recognize what's fair for both parties? So to summarize, BF has been in contact with a female friend since the beginning of our relationship that he has a sexual history with and emotionally cheated on an ex with. I've never felt secure about this and have brought it up many times with no resolution. Recently, I snooped on his computer and discovered that he had archived their conversation so I wouldn't notice they were talking. I don't know what's reasonable on either side. Now let's see what the community has to say. Opinion number 1 says, this is the point where a smart person ends the relationship. Any person who tells you they felt they had no choice but to lie to you or hide something from you because they were afraid of your reaction is not the person you want to be in a relationship with. It means they will lie to you about other things too and then blame you for their lying. But also, take it as a lesson for your next relationship to be 100% upfront about your needs. Everyone here can see that you clearly want him to stop being friends with this girl and stop talking to her because they have a sexual history together, yet you are too afraid to tell your boyfriend that you require this. So instead, you say it's okay to remain friends with the girl. And then every few months your insecurities come out, showing that you in fact do not think it's okay to remain friends with the girl. This should not be an ongoing thing. You have to be clear and upfront. So, when you talk to him, say this friendship has to end or this relationship has to end, and if he acts like he doesn't understand why, then break up with him immediately. Also, let him know that if he decides to end the friendship and stay in the relationship, then there cannot be any resentment or acting like you're the bad guy. Tell him if he pulls that for even a second, you will dump him. Where OP replied, you have very good points. If I had set hard boundaries from the beginning, we wouldn't be in this position. I didn't anticipate it being this much of an issue for me, but we've talked about it enough times that I've had plenty of opportunities to set a boundary by now. I don't think my next step is breaking up, but rather revisiting the conversation, and if that doesn't help, go to couples therapy. On most issues we've faced together, we're able to come to a resolution. This just has not been one of them since I haven't been assertive. Thanks so much for taking the time to share your advice. Opinion number 2 says, I'm normally pretty forgiving of people staying friends with someone they have a sexual history with. Just because they hooked up in the past doesn't mean they'll hook up again or that the other person is a threat to the relationship. That being said, however, that trust relies upon 2 preconditions. 1, that it's clear your partner is the priority, not the other person. Because if it's the other person, then it begs the question of why don't you date them instead. 2, that there's no unresolved bullshit or lingering sexual tension, because that's a disaster waiting to happen. More than once, I've dealt with women who swore up and down that they were completely done with an ex, even going no contact with them, only to make complete liars out of themselves. The simple fact is, if you want to have previous sexual partners and new people in your life, you have to manage that shit in a mature fashion. Old flames need to be kept in their box. There needs to be transparency, and if push comes to shove, the relationship has to come first. Otherwise, things will not be stable. Yes, you shouldn't have snooped, OP. But at the same time, his justification is bullshit. If she really is just a friend, then he should have nothing to hide. Putting that shit on you smells like projection. To be honest, it sounds like this other woman is your guy's one that got away, and it seems like both preconditions are in doubt. He's all up in her emotional BS and the sitch reeks of unresolved bullshit. Not saying that he's cheating or intends to cheat, but he's definitely acting funny, and it's reasonable for you to be suspicious, especially given their history. Another issue seems to be that you have a hard time standing up to your boyfriend's OP. Setting boundaries seems to be something you're not comfortable with, and that's why he seemed to get the better of the argument, making all about your snooping rather than his shifty behavior. In my experience, one of the biggest predictors of infidelity and breakups is a serious power imbalance in the relationship. Then one person starts taking the other person and then the relationship for granted. My advice to you is to revisit this issue at an appropriate time and set some new boundaries along the lines of what I suggested earlier. And also demand the truth from your guy about how he really feels about the other girl. And in particular, look at his behavior. If he's upfront, honest, and understands why it's an issue, there's hope. If he gets defensive, gives non-answers, or tries to turn it around on you, then I think it's time to start looking for an exit. Hope that helps. Opinion number 3 says, well, for a start, if the message to your roommate was you, why was it deleted? Hiding something makes it clear he knew this would bother you, so instead of telling you truth, he lied. He hid this from you. I imagine several times he would have told you he was talking to someone else, or that he no longer speaks to her, or that he's staying up late, whatever he told you when he was talking to her but didn't tell you. They had an emotional affair. I suspect they still are, based on the fact he completely turned this around on you. Yes, you shouldn't have snooped, and that is wrong, but he is using that as a rod to beat you with, to make you feel guilty and not press on this blatant betrayal of trust. If they were just friends, why hide it? Why not tell you from the start, introduce you to her and address, in front of everyone, the elephant in the room? Was she in a relationship when this affair happened too? She doesn't seem to be too bothered about ruining another relationship for him, unless he has lied by omission about you too. Where OP replied, I get what you're saying. I think I put him in an unfair position by declining both his offer to stop contact with her and his offer to show me their conversations early on. I can't fault him for my failure to set a boundary, can I? Yes, it does bother me a lot that, after seeing how much it bothered me, he didn't just make that decision himself, but it's not his job to decide for me, either. Kylie lives far away from us, so physical cheating isn't a concern here, and also is the reason we've never been introduced. I don't have any immediate reason to assume he's cheating emotionally, but I can't shake knowing that he's willing to hide things like this from me. The precedent this sets is really damaging. We're about to start couples therapy, which is the only way I can see us coming back from this. Neither of us is in the habit of keeping the other posted about who we're in contact with. That mostly only comes up in the context of making plans, or maybe sharing funny conversations. So on its own, that he wasn't in the habit of telling me he was talking to her wasn't an issue for me. Opinion number 4 says, so he offered to stop talking to her, but you said no, and now you are upset that he didn't stop talking to her anyway. It sounds like you want him to do what you want because he wants it too, not because you ask him to, but life doesn't always work like that. Although if you think he'd cheat on you unless he removes her from his life, you are probably better off just breaking up anyway. If you aren't ready to take that step yet, I would at least have a conversation with him about what emotional cheating is, because I have found that it means different things to different people. Personally, I think there are a lot of things deemed emotional cheating that would have been fine if the gender of one person was swapped, so I feel like it's overused. But I also believe that it's good for people to have support networks outside their partner and believe in platonic relationships, even with exes. If you and your boyfriend view it differently, there are greater odds you'll be hurt, and it sounds like you are maybe trying to prevent that by wanting her gone rather than dealing with the root problem. Where OP replied, you're absolutely right. I wanted him to make the call himself without having to ask it of him, which is not a good way to approach issues like this. He wrote this off as a me issue, but tonight I brought it up again and told him I've been thinking about it a lot, and it's not just a me problem. I don't feel great about it, but I told him I need him to stop talking with her. We've also just signed up for a 1-week trial of couples therapy, and I'm really hoping it helps. He's agreed to split the cost with me if we decide to go forward with it after the trial ends. I really appreciate your perspective. Thank you. How about you guys? What do you guys think about this whole situation, and what would your advice be for OP? Let's all discuss in the comments section below.